Hi, and welcome to Transparent with Tina. I am Tina Marx, your host. Today's guest is a two-time author and yoga instructor. She was diagnosed at 15 years old with the autoimmune disease lupus. Today, she's going to share about her journey. She's going to talk about her book where she shares her journey and the blessing that this disease provided for her in her life and finding her purpose and moving forward, along with a trip that she took. Up next, Danielle Butterly. Welcome, Dani. So nice to see your smiling face. I've been following you on Instagram, and I love, look at that. Client calling. Forgot to turn off. I have to get back to you.
Airplane mode. I should do that too.
Airplane mode. That's the best because when you do airplane mode, I didn't know that. Because everybody says to do that overnight so you don't get the EMFs, right? And I'm like, well, how am I going to wake up? Normally, actually, I don't even need the alarm. But for those of you out there that don't know that, you can put it on airplane mode. You don't hear your Instagram going off all night and text, but your alarm will break through that airplane mode, right?
Yes, it will, but it won't get calls. You'll take it off airplane mode and you'll see everything go through.
Exactly.
Can I tell you something that happened to me yesterday while I was in the same room and I should have had my phone on airplane mode, and it was like, I felt like it was a movie. It was crazy.
What happened?
I'm doing a speech for this group of women, XR women, for a virtual reality group. That's a new group because they're virtual reality. We go to this campus. I'm like this avatar, and they're introducing me onto the stage I was talking about conscious breathing and just the present moment. And I was already a little bit nervous because I haven't done that many public speeches. Obviously, I was an avatar, but you still get those little butterflies like, okay, what am I going to present to these people? And all of a sudden, my phone's not on airplane. My manager starts calling me. Another lady starts calling me teach at Lifetime Biltmore. I had forgotten. I've never done this before. I had not put it in my phone that I was subbing a class at that same time, a yin class at Lifetime. And they're like, where are you? Literally, while the woman was introducing me, this is Danielle, this is yoga teacher from Phoenix, Arizona. And I was like, oh my God, I have to speak right now. I couldn't even tell my manager where I was.
Right.
Like, it was just not good. I was, of course, ironically talking about like conscious breathing. And I was like, okay, I could do this.
Well, that's interesting that happened. Right. First of all, that was my first, when I saw this client calling, I'm going, did I get my schedule next time? I'm supposed to be having a call with her right now, right? Because this client, Arlie, doesn't really call me on the phone very much. So I was thinking the same thing. So, we're starting a little bit different than the way I would normally start, but you know what? Let's go with it because that's the way we're supposed to start. So talking about that, because, I've been realizing, the conscious breathing, conscious thinking, conscious awareness, okay, of your surrounding, what is going on internally, do you catch yourself like in those reactionary modes? And if you can catching yourself is one thing, right? Being able to kind of pivot during that moment, like when that happened. Okay. So were you able to like kind of pick it up and not lose any momentum and keep going?
I was able to like pull it together and still give the speech with my slides, talk about conscious breathing. But I feel like the speech I could have been a little bit better because I think I was just a little bit shooken up. But I think every time you like think back in hindsight, you think back, I could have said this, I could have done this better. Why did I say that and not this? So I think that would have happened regardless if my manager hadn't called or if I had it on airplane mode or something.
Well, yeah. So, and you know what? You even said somewhere in your guest appearance form that you would love to do a TEDx talk, but that like scares the daylights out of you. You know what? And I heard this so many times and it's true. And it's like, if it doesn't scare you, your dreams aren't big enough. And, whatever, like whenever I do this show, there's a certain level because I want to bring out the best show for all of my listeners and viewers. right? So if I didn't care, think about it. If I didn't care, I'd be like, oh, well, what the heck? But if you're a little nervous, it shows that you care and that dream is big enough. And if you're not a little bit scared or a lot scared, your dreams aren't big enough. So I think
very true.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I get nervous, but before like every class that I teach, no matter, well, maybe not every class, I've gotten past a lot of that, but any class that has more than like 5 people in it, I'm like, okay.
Are you talking about now yoga? Like, you're talking about your yoga?
I'm talking about a yoga class. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So now we're going to circle. Now let's start right there because you are a yoga instructor. I didn't even get a chance to put that in. You are a yoga instructor and you're a 2-time author. So
yes.
How come you get scared with 5 people in a class? What's going through your head that's making you?
I think that like you said with your show, is like you want to deliver to those people like the best to your ability, and you want to create change in those people's life shifts. Like you want to make an impact. But the more you make it about yourself, the less you actually have impact. It's this funny thing. If you get wrapped up in your ego, then it's like about you and it's not about them. But I think it's just my desire to make a change in someone's life. And I feel like that's a big ask or a big like thing to do. So it's just, that's pretty much it. It's just having that little bit of pressure and desire to want to help someone and how I can best do that. So that's the only like nerves that come up. And then also when people look at me, that's why teaching yoga is perfect, but because put someone in like a child's pose or down dog and I'll be able to like say anything. But when you're like looking at me, like a room of people that are looking at me, I just started teaching like this conscious breathing class where we're just doing breathing, and then also a journaling for transformation class. And so people are just, sitting there watching me. I'm like, this is a very different experience than teaching yoga, because yoga, they're moving all around. They're not really looking at me. I think I've just always had a little bit of like stage fright or something. Like when I was in middle school and giving my book report, what speeches, I would get so red and I hated it. I dreaded it. But somewhere along the way, like throughout my journey, ask my middle school self, I would have never been giving a speech or writing a book or doing any of the teaching yoga. It has just been like through my own healing journey, having the most profound shifts in my journey that has led me. It's like the hero's journey. Like eventually it's like becomes this overwhelming sense of like, I need to share. Like that's part of my path. That's part of my own healing journey, is like you share. And so it's like I force myself to share. And even when I'm scared, even when I'm like, my butterflies are going crazy, I'm like, okay, but this is part of my path and it's helping me to grow. It's expanding me. I know these things. So just like rip the Band-Aid off, do it, and you're good.
Right. Exactly. Feel the fear and do it anyway. So let me ask you this. How long have you been teaching yoga?
It's been maybe like 4 years now, I think.
Okay. So I
still feel like I'm new.
But you do know what you're doing. It's not like 4 months, 4 years, right?
Yeah. I know what I'm doing. I'm like, yeah.
So let me ask you, people looking at you is really difficult. So like when they're doing yoga poses and they're down dog, but you're still really nervous, even if there's 5 people in there, you've been doing it for 4 years. Okay. So I'm going to ask you this.
Depends on the people probably too.
If they're your best friends in there, okay, fine. But if there's people you don't know in there, right? But does this come from something deeper that maybe happened to you in your childhood or whatever that made you feel, because we all have a sense of unworthiness to a certain degree. Okay. I write about it in my first book, The Domino Effect, Fear versus Faith. I write that my dad just I was never good enough. I would get the grades. I do this. He always found a way that it wasn't satisfactory to him. So I went through my adult life thinking no matter what I did, I wasn't good enough. And that is one of the reasons I would start something and almost to the finish line, I would stop it, because I just read this morning and I figured out like how to articulate this, is that it's not only if you don't finish the finish line, you'll never know, because you can go, well, I never completed it, so I don't know if I'm a failure or not. But it's almost like you're setting yourself up to fail as well, because you don't have the belief in yourself. You can carry it through the finish line. And again, if you don't, then you don't have to condemn yourself for being a failure. Does any of that resonate with with your life? I mean, like,
100%.
where did
Yes.
you're a beautiful girl, you know what you're doing, you're articulate, but you have these.
I think that's definitely one of the reasons why I get nervous before teaching, is because somewhere in there's that feeling of, I don't know enough. I am not smart enough. I'm not charismatic enough. I don't know what I'm talking about. It's like, but I
You feel
do.
like almost
and you
like
just
a
have to
fraud.
remind yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
You almost feel like a fraud.
Like deep down, yeah, it's crazy because
Deep down,
I do know that I know.
Yeah. One more.
But then deep down also.
What's that?
Yeah. I said, it's like deep down, but then deep down, you also have that little like person inside that's like, you don't know what you're doing.
That you feel like you've got to know everything, right? You feel like you've got to know everything. And I just want to speak to that for just a moment, because I used to be that person 100%. I would be like, if I don't know the exact steps and see on paper or in my head of how that's going to work, this is how I'd have a great idea and I'd go like this, it'd go like this. And all of a sudden it's right back into a circle. And I've just talked myself out of it. And
so you wouldn't go all the way through, you'd go all the way to the end. I feel like I have that sometimes.
And talk myself out of it because I didn't have all the answers of A to Z. And I'll give you a perfect example. Okay. 2 years ago, I wanted to move to the coast. And I went and looked at properties. I fell in love with this townhouse. At that time, financially, I was like, well, I can't afford 2 places and my son's still in school. I revisited again last year for just the summer. And that's what I did. Well, if I do this and I'm not renting out my house and, and what happens if my son doesn't like it? And what happens if I don't feel, what if, then do it. Okay. I just signed on the dotted line for a place on the coast. And you know what? I'm coming from a place. Yes. And I'll figure it out later. Everybody's like, you're going to keep both places. I'm like, that's my intention. And if I can't do that, the next thing will present itself to make sure that everything's going to be okay. Because you know what? Everything that we worry about is like unnecessary worry. Would you agree? Most, like say 90% of it.
Yes,
right?
There's some statistic. It's always different. It's like 95%, 90% of the thoughts that we think are like negative or harmful or critical instead of helpful. I don't know the statistic.
Right. Well, I know the
a lot of our
statistics.
thoughts.
It's like 55,000 thoughts go through the average person's mind every day. 85% of those are negative, self-limiting thoughts. So there you go. So they're just thoughts. So let's back up a little bit. Before you became a yoga instructor and an author, you have been healing for quite a long time. I don't even know where you are right now, from an autoimmune disease, which is.
Yes. So when I was about 15, it's funny because I was just, before you popped on, I was writing myself a letter. Someone gave me a prompt, write a letter to your 14-year-old self. And I was just in the middle of like writing, like, you're about to go through some tough times, like stick with it. It's like almost like making me get a little emotional because I was just starting to write it. And like, I'm now 27 years old, but like that was the turning point right after, I was 15 is when I was first diagnosed with lupus. When I went to a rheumatologist and they did the blood test and I had the high ANA count and they were like, yeah, so you have lupus indicators. So I kept getting sick.
What was your symptoms? Like, why did they even test you for lupus?
Because I was a cheerleader, and after each routine that I ever did, I was starting to get really severe Raynaud's. If you've ever heard of Raynaud's, it's a circulation disorder where it looked like my fingers were being dipped into wax. Like it was like they were straight white, and it was just, that was like the first thing where my circulation was like definitely very off. After routine, after high exertion. And then it started happening in the cold. So it it's still, I do cold hot therapy all the time to try to heal it. This is the last thing that I'm still trying to heal is my circulation. Every naturopath I've been to has told me that circulation is a very deeply rooted thing. So still working through
Meaning
it
what? What does that mean? Deeply rooted what?
I don't really, I mean, deeply rooted meaning like it could take a lot
soulfully
longer
or
to
in your
heal.
body? I mean, is it like psychically, I mean, which,
I mean, however you, maybe soulfully, maybe past lives, like who knows, like how deeply rooted it is, but
okay.
it's been proven a symptom to be one of the harder ones to get rid of. It was also pretty much my first symptom that I had. So after the circulation, I started getting just like weird aches and fevers, almost like every weekend for a while. Every time I was like stressed out, my body would give me a response to like fight off a virus, basically like heating my body up. And then every muscle in my body would get really achy. So that's why I was like, I'm going to a rheumatologist. What's wrong with me here?
Okay. All right.
So then they did some blood
Diagnosed
tests.
with lupus is at 15?
Yes. Yeah.
Did you, so how did you react?
I tried going gluten-free at that time, and going gluten-free at that time was like super hard. This was like 13 years ago. So like all of the gluten-free stuff was like
they're non-existent.
Apart. And it was not as much. It was like crazy. Yeah, at that time, my mom was like not into health as much too. So she was like, we're going to Whole Foods. We're going to spend $10 on this loaf of bread. Like,
yeah,
because being healthy there is a price to it too. When you start
but there's
to
a
think
bigger
about
price
all
if
of the
you're
things.
sick.
Exactly. Right. So
People
pay
don't
for it
understand
now and don't pay for it later is the idea.
So up until that point, would you say like up until 15, I mean, granted, your body's young, everything else, but how was your eating habits? What was going on up here? What was going on in your emotional? I mean,
I was pretty confident. Like I was I was confident, but I was hard on myself. Like I was a gymnast, and you're taught as a gymnast at a young age, like toes on the line, arms straight, legs straight. If you're not perfect, 8.2, and you're trying so hard, you're doing your best, and it's never good enough. So I learned my psyche has just like from like a young age, and I was a very like pretty talented gymnast at a young age too. So it was like pretty just intense. And so that, I think that carried, and I really do think that's the root cause of my autoimmune condition is like that psyche attacking itself.
Bingo. I was thinking you were going to say that. You were going to say that.
Yeah. Right. So that's our mind body.
Did you just realize that now, or did you realize that before? Or was this like,
I've definitely realized that before, and it's been a process to be kind to myself and not ruminate, have compassion, and just be okay with like not being perfect,
Yeah. What does perfect look like anyway? Really?
Oh, it's
perfect.
Looks
like somebody's Instagram page that is not showing the real shit. That's what perfect looks like, because nobody has a perfect life. I don't care. They want to make it look like it's perfect, but it's not, right? So you were diagnosed.
It's not being transparent, that's for sure.
But yeah, exactly. And you know what? I do this show. I mean, why I named it Transparent with Tina is, because something you were saying earlier too. It's like you wrote the book. This show keeps me accountable to myself. To stay transparent, because when I'm transparent, that means I am completely embracing everything about myself. If I'm transparent, I'm saying the F-bomb when I want to say it. I'm just letting it rip, because you know what? I have totally embraced myself, that I am perfect, whole, and complete the way I am, just as you are, just like everybody listening. But you know what? We feel like we're not. We feel like we always have to change things, and then we put on the mask, and that's when we get in trouble. Right? It's that striving for, instead of, because we've gotten so far off the path, it's like we're always got our eye on the next thing. What's the next thing to accomplish, and do we ever, first of all, even applaud ourselves from the monumental thing we just did, whether it was a big TEDx speech or getting a certification or getting whatever it was, or, we don't do that. We just shove that aside, and then all of a sudden on to the next. And it's like, it's no wonder your body, your mind, your spirit starts breaking down. I mean, how would you like to be treated that way?
Yeah.
Right. And it's funny that you said, how would you like to be treated that way? That's how we treat ourselves. Right.
Exactly. I know. We're so mean to ourselves sometimes. Like, stop that.
Sometimes, a lot of the time, until we start to get it. And I know that you have gotten it now, and you are on your way. And I know that I've got it. It took me a long, and that's why we do this show, because I want other people to listen to this and understand this so they don't have to go. I mean, seriously, I was writing in my journal. I think it was really 2 years ago that I really just locked and loaded, finally like nailed it. And I'm 58. So it took me a long time. I want people to get it by their 20s and their 30s, right? So you can, you know, the difference from one side to the other.
The time is now, for sure.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. So tell us, so after you were diagnosed with lupus, then tell us a little bit about your journey and how you found your purpose into helping other people.
I feel like it's such just like a whirlwind of what happened. But I basically lived a normal per se life of going through high school, going through college, while trying to heal. Like, I started getting into yoga probably around the same time, because my mom started getting into yoga then. And that's when I did my first teacher training, not because I was like, I want to do a teacher training, but because my mom got a 2-for-1 deal with the studio, and she just brought her daughter along with. So I'm like so grateful that she did that, because I had all of these seeds that were planted into my brain at that time. I remember I was taking like blood thinners. I was taking some steroids, prednisone, when they first diagnosed me, for like a year, maybe a little bit longer, when I was in high school. And I just like, I knew something wasn't right with that. I was like, I don't feel right with these steroids. Like, and they were like, yeah, you're going to be taking these for the rest of your life. And I was like, what? Like, that just isn't right. But I mean, I was still going through school. I was still hanging out with friends. But it definitely made me start to think about like life and death a lot more. All of a sudden I realized like, life is finite. Oh, like I'm going to die at some point. Not that I was going to die anytime soon. They weren't like giving me a death sentence or anything, but they were making me think about life by getting the doctors, by getting this autoimmune condition. I was like, oh, like health is really important. I should value the time that I have on earth so much more, because I only get this one life. And what if it's not long? There was a certain period of time when I really thought I was going to die young. I was like, I wasn't sure, because the doctors, they just didn't have answers for me. It was like a very confusing time where like they're giving me blood thinners, and I would look stuff up on the internet. What is lupus? And it could get really bad. And so there just weren't like clear answers. And I think I like tricked myself into being like, well, you might die young.
Did they ever say to you what causes lupus? I mean, I'm not familiar with lupus. I've heard about it. I don't even know what brings it on.
They just say that they're like, your immune system is attacking itself. And what Western doctors do is they just treat the symptom. They say your immune system is attacking itself. It's not working the way it should be. So here's this, we're going to
put you on a drug for the rest of your life.
Yeah, which is like, look at the bigger picture. Like, ask me about my childhood and how hard I was on myself.
Ask me about
what's your immune system.
Yeah, what's going through your head? What are you putting in your body? What's going on, with you spiritually? Yeah, exactly. And you know what? I'm so glad that you wrote this book. And I'm just going to tell everybody now, it is called Fuck the System, an Autoimmune Disease Healing Journey. I love it. I love the fact that you're just so out there with it. And it's so true. And when I saw the name of that book, I'm like, right on. Because, I don't know if you know, but most of my audience knows, I'm a cancer survivor. And so I had asked myself the same questions. They wanted me to do radiation, followed up with tamoxifen for 5 years. The minute I Googled tamoxifen, it said carcinogen. I'm like, no, what the hell?
Yeah, what?
Are you kidding? Yeah. So share with us your journey when you first started going, this doesn't make any sense, but here's the thing. Everybody just does what their doctor says. because they feel like, well, they would know. I mean, cancer, women that I met after me who had cancer, breast cancer, I'd say, do this. Well, if that was true, my doctor would know. No, they wouldn't, because they only have 45 minutes of nutritional education in their whole, and then their whole time of study. So they don't know anything about that. They know how to cut people. They know how to prescribe medication, identify, but they don't go down and identify the cause of, like, how did this start?
They don't know you, right? They don't know you as much as you know you. And I went to so many doctors that I realized, after going to a lot of different doctors, I was like, oh, wow, people are just people, like doctors are just doctors. Like they do know a lot. They've gone to school for a long time, but they don't know everything. And you know more than anyone else knows. So it was after college, actually, that I decided, like, things weren't any better. They weren't any worse. My circulation was bad. I was having flare-ups, not as frequently as when I first got diagnosed, which was like almost every weekend. I don't know why they started coming less, but they were coming maybe once a month or every other month or something, where I would just get these things and I would just be like, oh, well, it's my flare-up. I just have to go to bed for like 3 days.
What does a flare-up look like?
It looks like I'm sick. It looks like I have a virus. So I'm just lay in bed and just hang out for about 3 days, let the thing run its course. And that would just be it. I would take a lot of ibuprofen in that time because it would just be the only thing that would help me not feel pain. There was times when I was like crawling to the bathroom because my muscles were so achy in college. I remember that. But then it was kind of getting worse towards the end of college, where I was like, just not feeling great. And I knew that I didn't want to go the normal path. I was like, everyone else is doing, like, we were partying in college here and there. I went to U of A, and everyone that I knew that had graduated 2 years before was like doing the same stuff, and they were in their corporate job and they were living this life that just didn't seem like it was fitting my circle shape. I was like, okay, this isn't this, like, I'm not forcing myself into a box. Like, it just doesn't feel like this is the way I should go. So that's when I decided to travel. And I saved up money. I've always worked. Like, I didn't have anyone pay for me. I was a server in college, and I saved up money and I went to Thailand and I taught English for a whole semester.
So this is after you're out of college, after you graduated college.
Yeah. After I graduated college, I was like, okay, this is my time. I'm going to go on my soul searching healing journey. Something was telling me I needed to get out of the United States. Not that I don't love the United States and love my friends and family, but I just felt like I needed to be away from my friends and family to, like, discover myself and figure out what was this core issue, and just, like, take the time to watch the documentaries, take the time to really meditate. So when I went to Thailand, I was like meditating like so much. Like, when I first started, it was like 10 minutes a day or whatever. And then I was meditating 30 minutes in the morning, an hour at night. Like, I was doing a lot of meditation and a lot of like chanting. I was doing a lot of just like all of the things that I wanted to do, that I was like, I want to understand this mind-body connection at an experiential level. I didn't want to just read about it in my textbooks. Like, so I was like, I'm going to understand what this is. And I had some very profound meditations that made me realize like other realities. Like, that's when I became spiritual. I was like, okay, like, we are not just this physical being. We are energy and vibration, and we are all connected, and we are all like love. And that's basically where the book was born from. It was my desire to inspire others to go on their healing journey for themselves, but also to like wake people up to like that we are not finite in our souls. Like, we have this physical vessel that will eventually die, but like our souls will go on. And I just know that from such a place of knowing, from doing all of the meditation that I did, that I was like, okay, well, now I have to share this because it's so profound.
Yeah, it's a stamp on your heart. You're the messenger. That's how you found your purpose, right? I mean, you said something. You said you realize your soul's purpose here on earth is to help other people heal and awaken, and that we are all walking each other home. I love that.
Yes.
I love.
We are all walking.
Tell us more about that. I mean, seriously. I mean, that is very profound. We're all walking
are-
each other home.
I mean, it's so simple with just those words that sometimes putting more words to it makes it like not as powerful. But I think like that's I think a Ram Dass statement. Basically, we are helping each other realize that we're not going to die when our bodies die. Like I truly know that to be true.
Home meaning when we pass.
Yes.
Right? Home.
Yes.
Okay. So
when we pass, our souls will go on, and that's home. Like, I think this is just school. It's
absolutely.
earth school.
I believe the same thing. I believe, and you know, if you realize that, there's nothing really to be fearful about. You know, I think when I first started getting it, because I was fearful of anything that didn't go my way. I mean, seriously, I was going to LA and I didn't need to be there for an appointment at a certain time. And I'd run into traffic, it flipped me out. Just anything that, you know, I'm telling you that I was like freaking hot wire. And then you start to, and I say like, well, what's the worst thing that could happen if we stay in traffic 4 hours? Well, I'm going to be, and I walked it all the way through. Like, what's the worst? Well, what happened? Or let's say you lost your job and you lost your income, you lost your house, and I walked it all the way through. And the last thing is I would die. And I went, it's not bad. I'm going to meet my maker. See what I'm saying? And I've said this in my book. I said, what happens is we usually bail out at the top of the fear. So if you're starting here and you're starting to get scared, right about here, we go, I can't take it anymore. But if you keep going a little bit more, it goes back down to the bottom and it all makes sense again. And you're like, it's not that big of a deal, because the fear is really your imagination takes and runs with it. Your imagination is great for a lot of other reasons, to be creative, to bring your purpose forth. So let me ask you, when you were scared in these times, and and even now, we all get afraid. I don't care if you've got it figured out or not. Like, I think I've got this whole thing figured out, but I'll get scared one day. You know what I mean? I mean, it still happens. What do you do, or what would you share with the audience of how not to get scared? Let's say somebody's being diagnosed, that just got diagnosed today, that's listening to this, and they've just got diagnosed with if it's whatever you have, or it's cancer, or whatever it is. Do you have any?
I would say that everything that happens in your life is happening for you and not to you. I think that my autoimmune condition, the path that it's taken me on was just I call it like the bonk on my head. I'm like, I literally needed that thing to be like, wake up to more, to this bigger reality that we live on Earth. Our vessels are on Earth, but there's so much more to the universe that's out there. And it took getting this autoimmune disease, going into healing myself, going into meditation for me to understand that spiritual aspect to it. And that was just my wake up. It was my awakening
to go into a deeper space.
Lean into it.
Yeah.
Yes, to go into a deeper space.
Yeah. And, I see the same thing because, I share that, I came from a very affluent family with we had the tennis court, private schools, lessons up the kazoo. Seriously, I didn't want for anything. Had I gone along that path and not had a father that was challenging my worth all the time, I don't know, I probably wouldn't have found my purpose. Because, and what I'm reading more and more and more about, and Evan Carmichael writes this in his book, Built to Serve. If you're struggling to know what your purpose is, start looking at your challenges in your life. Because oftentimes that's how we find our purpose, is by the biggest challenges in our life. Instead of saying, oh God, I just want to get over this, get away from me. Maybe you need to lean into that and go, maybe that is God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, tapping you on the shoulder going, here it is. This is how you're going to help people. Because that's really what purpose is to serve and help yourself and other people. Would you agree with that?
Right. Yeah, I do. And I would say also, one of my yoga teachers would say pain is neither good nor bad. It's just an indication that something needs to change.
Needs to be healed.
Like on our mat, if the pose doesn't feel good, change something. And our body talks to us in little whispers.
Yes.
It's like, something's not right, until we don't listen to those whispers for long enough that it's like a big message, like, oh, damn, you have this disease now, or you have this huge thing. And it's like, you weren't listening up until then. Okay, so now you have this. What can you learn from it? It's happening for you. And then what can you change? What can you change in your diet? What can you change in your daily routines? Like, it's neither good nor bad. If you look at it that way, it's just an indication that something needs to change.
Your mind, body, and spirit are always trying to push you forward. So by these indications, these challenges, that's all they're doing is going, we need to get to the next level. We need to get to the next level because, we are not put on earth to be complacent. We are here to create and move forward, right? So, if you look at that, any kind of, I tell my clients all the time, learn to be uncomfortable every single day. And at first they're like, what? I don't want to be uncomfortable every single day. And I myself, because I've always been the guinea pig, I don't tell you to do something if I haven't done it, and at first I was like, this sucks. And it did suck. But then after, once it became a habit, seriously, now it's like, that's my new normal. And it's like what most people would think is uncomfortable is like, okay, to me, it's like an adventure. So I've looked at this from, oh God, I've got to get up and face another day, or what do I have to do as opposed to what do I get to do? And I know it sounds like really Pollyanna until you've reached these points, but let me ask you, what are 3 takeaways to everybody that's listening and watching for them, if they're listening to this and going, well, that's great, girls, you guys are there, but I'm not, and I'm suffering and it stinks on my side. I mean, what would you say, 3 things, that takeaways that maybe that you started your journey with, or something that would give them a push out the front door?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Just keep going, keep going, keep going. 3 things.
Well,
keep going, trust and surrender. I mean, those are so cliche, so cheesy, but that's the essence of it. It's keep going, keep yourself moving when you get down.
Okay, that is one thing that you said. You did say that in there, and you said, keep yourself, no matter how you feel, keep yourself in motion is what you said, active, right?
Yes.
Get up and do something.
If something's down, go take a walk, get your body moving, because then energy and motion, you'll just keep going and it'll be great.
Right, exactly.
The best one I can say is keep moving.
Keep moving.
I mean, yes.
And then the trust and surrender. I love the surrender part because I'd never surrendered completely until this last year. So what would you?
Have you ever read this surrender experiment?
What am I surrendering to? What would you say?
I would say trust and surrender go the same way, but you're just surrendering to the flow of what the universe has in store for you. You're not forcing. The more you force, the more things butt against each other. You're allowing. It's this allowance of flow to happen, and just moving away from force, moving more towards this surrendering, but then also knowing to get things done, you have to put in effort. You have to put in some action.
No, you can put in the effort and the intention and everything else, but don't be attached to the outcome, right? So I might have an intention for the day or how I want my day to look like, but if there's something that shifts up in there, instead of going, oh God, I knew this was going to happen, or why me? Okay, that was me, right? I go, okay, well, it was supposed to shift right here. Supposed to learn something. Maybe it's just learning more to be flexible. Maybe I'm not supposed to learn anything out of the situation in front of me that's challenging. Maybe it's just for me to learn how to be more flexible. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So always kind of look for the lesson, right? And this is, as you can testify, Danny, it's going to change everything in your life, your mind, your body, your spirit, your central nervous system. Because this way of being my whole life has taken a big hack out of my central nervous system. Seriously. Right. And that's what I'm now trying to control and get that underway, because it will, even, you're young and a lot of people are like, oh, it'll never happen to me. No, you just wait, if you keep going that way. So if you want a beautiful life and you don't want to just get through life, these are great practices that you've talked about. And anything else you want to share? Closing statement here?
Oh, closing statement. I don't know if I have one. Just keep going, keep surrendering, trust, know that there's more to life, and don't forget to meditate. It's so important, and people overlook their meditation practice all the time, being like, oh, I'll get to it later. But it's so important to just sit down, do your meditation, even if you're not feeling the effects right away. Like, just keep doing it, and you'll see the benefits.
Because it brings you in a connection with the energy of the universe. And that's really what heals us and gets us to trust and gets us to surrender. Because without that, first of all, there's no intuition. We all have intuition. I mean, I believe that intuition is the whisper of God. And if your mind is so busy, you're not going to hear it. People are like, why isn't anything happening? Why aren't any opportunities happening for me? Everything's happening for her, nothing's happening for me, because they are aware of the opportunities. And everybody every day has new opportunities that are in front of them. But whether you recognize them or not is another story. So if you chew up in your head and you're worrying about things you can't control and you're not open, then
right. Those messages don't come in, right? You're too blocked. You've got too much going on that, like, those messages, those downloads that come through, like they don't come through if you're doing too much.
Right. Exactly. And your book is your journey through the autoimmune healing process.
It's about a year-long journey of me. So when I left for college is when I would do my whole surrender experiment, my own surrender experiment. We went to Thailand, Bali, India, France, and Sweden that were all unplanned. It's basically my own Eat, Pray, Love. There's a little love story.
I was going to say, I just saw that movie again the other day. I love that. I was thinking about that when you said that in the beginning. I was like, this sounds like Eat, Pray, Love. Good for you that you have that opportunity.
It's the millennial Eat, Pray, Love.
Right. And again, this would make no sense. I don't know if you had any pushback from people going, what are you doing? You just graduated college. You're going to go on this, whatever. But there you go. I mean, this trip changed your life. So those
I learned more in that 1 year than 4 years at U of A.
Exactly, everybody. So you know what? When you have a strong intuition and God put something on your heart, or you've got to do that. Really, don't let other people talk you out of it. Don't let you're not being realistic, because your reality is all really your making. Your reality is your making and not somebody else's. So don't let naysayers talk you out of that, because they're probably just jealous anyway that they would want to do that. They don't have the courage.
Right. You have the choice every day. Yeah. You can raise the money. You can do it. Like, it's your choice.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so fuck the system, do what you want.
Yeah. Be who you want to be. Faith, not fear. You know what? Because if you're more, this too. The more that you live in faith, the more that you are brave and courageous, the more you're rewarded. And then all of a sudden more keeps rushing in and more keeps rushing in. Right.
Yes, 100%. Definitely.
All right. Well, it's such a pleasure having you here. Where can we find your book? Fuck the System, an Autoimmune Disease Healing Journey.
Yes, find it on my Instagram. It's just in my bio. If you go to Dani Butterly on Instagram and go to my bio, there's a link to it. You can find it on Amazon, or you can find it on the link too. I feel like it's sometimes hard to search on Amazon, so just go through my Instagram. Makes it easier.
Perfect. And if you're not following Dani, please do. Her page is amazing. So thank you so much for being here. It's been a pleasure. It's so great to always talk to like-minded people. We're trying to get this message out. That's really what the point of this show is show other people that you're not alone. Okay. And hopefully, our audience will connect with one of my guests, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be connecting with you today. So thank you for being here. If you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, it's Tina Marks TV, and we will see you next week.